to Cristina Diez Saguillo. And Cristina is the director of the International Relations Training at the International Movement ATD 4th World. Cristina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Emad. Distinguished representatives, civil society colleagues, because negotiations for financing for development are very soon starting on Monday, I would like to make my comments refer to the zero draft. And I would like to start with the first paragraph. I'm quoting, "Our ambition is to eradicate poverty and hunger, to achieve equitable and sustained economic growth and sustainable development, to protect the environment, and to promote peaceful and inclusive societies where no one is left behind. We commit to ensure gender equality and promote and protect all human rights." And I will make my comments referring to this ambition. Yet, we feel that the motto, "leave no one behind," is very often repeated without a clear understanding of all the transformative shifts it demands in mindsets and behaviors, in national policy choices, in the functioning of multilateral and bilateral institutions, and in global governance. The principle loses its meaning if it is not paired with a commitment to address inequalities, discrimination and social exclusion, and to foster participation. In addressing international public finance, I will come back to the first paragraph that sets our ambition. In the zero draft, we welcome paragraph 57 that says we encourage developed countries to target ODA to the poorest and those most in need, taking into consideration agreed spending requirements to end poverty and invest in people. But we think that the language is very weak, and we would like to propose the following language. We, developed countries, commit to target ODA to benefit the poorest 20% of the population in developing countries. And because we are at the UN and in this arena we need political balance, we ask recipient countries to agree to the same commitment. Some examples of the kind of activities that should be prioritized in national budgets is if ODA was to reach the poorest and most in need. High-quality essential services that are accessible and affordable, and universal social protection systems. The UN Guiding Principles on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights provide an excellent framework for policymakers, whether designing ODA policies or public policies, particularly for poverty eradication efforts. Another area where investment should be prioritized is in the improvement of statistical capacity to ensure the availability of disaggregated data to monitor the impact of ODA by income, gender, ethnicity, and other relevant dimensions. Again, in the zero graph, we welcome the mention in paragraph 58 that ODA can support improved task collection. I would like to bring an idea that was mentioned yesterday at the hearings with the private sector by Roberto Biscio, challenging the notion that financing for development is about ODA. When we know that every year $50 billion float out of Africa illegally, and this amount doubles the ODA inflows, tax collection should be the priority. New tax systems at national and international levels should be built that bring about social justice and ensure environmental protection. Domestic funding can be further increased through improved tax collection and broadening the tax base, progressive taxation on income and wealth to increase revenue, reduce inequalities, and tackle extreme wealth, and collective national and international measures to address tax evasion, tax havens, and tax avoidance, as has been mentioned previously. About climate change, we welcome paragraphs 60 and 61. We would like to remind the importance, as my colleague Chantal said, of raising alternative funds to combat climate change. Everything that I will say in this, referring to these paragraphs, can be applied to education, the paragraphs on education and health. In line with the ambition mentioned in paragraph 1, it could be crucial to monitor the impact of climate change and policy responses on the most vulnerable communities, particularly those living in extreme poverty, and to ensure that local communities participate in the assessment of this impact. In order to ensure that most vulnerable communities are adequately protected by climate change policies, it is critical to develop disaggregated data when measuring the effects of climate change and the corresponding responses. My fourth point is about the multilateral development banks. Paragraph 63 mentions the role multilateral development banks can play in alleviating constraints on financing infrastructure investment. ODA has contributed to a disproportionate emphasis on hard infrastructure investment. That has often come at the expense of agriculture, public services, and other social investments that have a direct and positive impact on the life of the poorest populations. Furthermore, many of the infrastructure projects have displaced these populations, resulting in a rupture of social, cultural, economic, and community ties, and deepening their poverty. We welcome the mention of the safe words in this paragraph, but we still think that the language is weak. And we would like to propose, after the realization of sustainable development goals, to add the following language: without producing negative effects or harm to affected communities, and consistent with human rights principles and obligations under international law. The paragraph in the zero draft continues saying, without being unduly burdensome. We are sure that in view of the ambition mentioned in paragraph 1, avoiding harming communities and respecting human rights cannot be considered unduly burdensome for any country, even the least developed countries. I would like to finish with paragraph 72 about the effectiveness of development cooperation. This paragraph talks about building genuine and inclusive partnerships and increasing transparency and mutual accountability. I'd like to link this to the ambition we discovered when carrying out a participatory research project with people living in poverty to contribute to the post-2015 development agenda, which is the basis of my comments today. If I were to summarize the ambition, I said that the poorest people aspire to a world without poverty, where everyone has equal opportunity to access all human rights. In this world, everyone can fully develop their potential and be known and treated with dignity as whole human beings. In this vision, people's knowledge, skills, experience, culture, energy, and inventiveness are the country's most valuable resources. In this sense, they aspire to be part of the genuine and inclusive partnerships referred to in paragraph 72. They hope to be considered valuable actors and not merely recipients of aid. If this agenda is to be truly universal and transformative, the participation of the poorest and most marginalized people should be the measure of our success. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. You have put very clear proposals on amendments on the zero draft related to tax systems, climate change, multi-development banks, partnerships, transparency, and accountability. Later, we will hear from our distinguished member states representatives, so we would like to hear from them some of their feedback on this. Now I give the floor to